government. Russia has welcomed it. India has backed it. Pakistan barely finds a mention in it. We'll bring you the highlights. In Africa, Benin has thwarted a coup attempt. In the US, J.D. Vance, the vice president, is paying for his politics. He targeted immigrants. Now people are targeting his wife, who has Indian roots. In Goa, 25 people dead in a nightclub fire. We look at what happened there and who is responsible. Also in focus, will Donald Trump kill the Netflix Warner Brothers deal that is rocking Hollywood? And why 2025 is not the year for the Louvre, the museum. We'll explain why. The headlines first. Japan issues a tsunami warning after a 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck off its coastline. Authorities fear that the tsunami height could reach almost 10 feet. In some coastal areas, the quake was felt in central Tokyo as well. There are no immediate reports of casualties or damage. It was a bad day for the Indian stock market, with the benchmark indices ending with steep losses. The Sensex shed more than 600 points. The Nifty closed below the 26,000 mark. This comes despite robust domestic growth figures and the Reserve Bank of India's recent rate cut. Thousands of people take to the streets across Syria to mark a year since the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. Syria's new president calls for unity in rebuilding the country, while Ahmad al-Shara has managed to win relief from global sanctions. He still faces many challenges in keeping the fractured country united. The Rapid Support Forces seized Sudan's largest oil field. Both the army and the paramilitary RSF want control over the resource-rich region. In October, the RSF dislodged the army from its last holdout in Darfur. The focus has now shifted to the neighboring region. In Norway, a shooting at a large shopping centre in Oslo creates panic. The mall full of Christmas shoppers had to be evacuated. The suspected shooter has been arrested. Police say he acted alone. The attacker's identity has not been disclosed. And the European Union dismisses online attacks by Elon Musk, calls the tech tycoon's remarks quote-unquote completely crazy statements. Musk wants the bloc to be abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries. Musk hit out at the EU after it fined his social media platform X millions of dollars. The crisis continues at Indigo. 7 days, 4,500 cancellations and almost 6 lakh passengers affected. It's a crisis of massive proportions, one that has jolted the government and the industry. We'll start with the status update. Things are getting marginally better at airports across India. On Friday, almost 1,000 Indigo flights were cancelled. On Saturday, around 850 flights were cancelled. On Sunday, around 650 flights, and today, around 500 flight cancellations. So yes, the numbers are coming down. But remember, 500 cancelled flights is still a lot. That's thousands of travellers stranded and hundreds of plans stuck in limbo. Let me show you some pictures. These are scenes from the Delhi airport today. Dozens of bags just lying around. You can see similar pictures from across the country, in Chennai, in Mumbai, in Guwahati, Bengaluru, major airports across India. It's the same sight. And what is the government doing about this chaos? What is Indigo doing? The matter has reached, or did reach, the Indian Parliament today. India's aviation minister promised strict action against Indigo.
We are not taking this situation easily. We are doing an inquiry and we will take very, very strict action, not only for this situation, but also as an example. We will set an example for all the airlines. If there is any miscompliance, any non-compliance or non-adherence for any single person, any entity or any organization or any operator functioning in this civil aviation, we will take very, very strict action so that we set an example.
Indigo's CEO has also been pulled up. That's Pieter Elbers. The government issued a show cause notice to him on Saturday. They gave him 24 hours to explain what went wrong. But the airline sought more time. They promised to give a detailed response by tonight. In this response, Indigo is blaming a number of factors for this crisis. They're blaming technical glitches, they're blaming adverse weather, they're blaming airspace congestion and also the new crew regulations. So the carrier is basically trying to shift blame elsewhere. Although let's face it, the damage is already done. Indigo's reputation is down in the dumps. They tried to fix it with a newspaper apology on Saturday, a full-page ad saying, "We are sorry." But no one is buying it. Look at Indigo's shares. They're down by more than 15% in the last 5 days. They plunged by more than 8% in today's trade. In total, Indigo has lost $4.8 billion in value, which is a major setback to the carrier. What are they doing about it? Well, they've set up a crisis management group. The company has set up a crisis management group. They have 4 main goals. One is to restore operations to 100%. Second is to put out information quickly. Third is to expedite refunds and rescheduling. And fourth is to expedite baggage returns. But none of this answers the big question. How long will all of this take? When will Indigo return to normal? One of their statements reveals a clue. It says refunds are being processed for flights up to 15th December. That's until next Monday. So do not expect things to normalize overnight. They will take time. Indigo says they have delivered 4,500 bags to passengers. That's 4,500 out of 9,000 bags, meaning half the bags are yet to be returned. This will be completed in the next 36 hours. That's what the airline says. And refunds? Around 580,000 tickets were cancelled until yesterday. 580,000 tickets. The government says all of them have been refunded. Indigo says refunds worth 800 crore rupees have been processed. But on the ground, it doesn't really check out because many passengers still say that they're yet to receive the refunds. And this goes beyond numbers, this story. Behind each cancelled ticket is a story. Maybe a daughter flying to her ailing parents, or friends flying to a wedding, or a worker flying for a crucial business meeting, or a family flying for that much-awaited holiday. These cancellations disrupt long-standing plans, and that is why you see this outpouring of anger. Just look at the scenes over the last 7 days. This was outside the Mumbai airport.
Madam, 4 दिन से 3 दिन से बिना खाए बेच हुए यहाँ पे खड़े ऐसा करने से प्यार से बोले मैडम प्यार से बोले हम 3 दिन से प्यार से बोल रहे हैं.
We don't know what is the problem with the Indigo and everything. The administration has said that common sense is there, that I have come along with my family, small children, aged 79, 80 years old, along with 5-6 baggages and everything. After coming over, they are saying that it is cancelled.
In Bengaluru, things escalated. Travellers gathered outside the Indigo counter. They began banging on the glass panels.
Flight cancel है तो मैसेज क्यों नहीं है? Still don't have message.
रात को 1 बजे हम लोग घर से निकले और इंडिगा के लिए हम लोग वेट कर रहे हैं तो कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं, कुछ नहीं बोल रहे हैं. फ्लाइट है, अभी है, 10 बजे है, वापस 12 बजे है. ऐसा हमको फिरा के अभी लास्ट में 6:30 को बोल रहे हैं कि फ्लाइट आपका भुवनेश्वर का कैंसिल हो गया है.
Same in Chennai. Long queues, longer delays and no accountability.
No, when you can give me a printer for booking, for rescheduling, why not for cancellation? I'm going and if you are in my place, you will have a better, worse not than this.
There are almost 200 people standing in front of me. Nobody's helping out with anyone. So I checked downstairs on the baggage. They are not helping. No information on the website on the delay. No information on the app. Nothing.
Put yourself in their shoes. You've bought a ticket, you have checked in your bag, You've got your boarding pass, but suddenly the flight is delayed and then it is cancelled, and now you must wait endlessly to get your baggage back. This has been the story since last Tuesday. Many passengers tried booking new flights to their destination, and guess what they saw? Prices were jacked up almost 10 times. Flights from Mumbai to Delhi were selling for 50,000 rupees economy. 50,000. To put that in context, it's usually between 4 to 5,000 rupees. They raised it to 50,000. So on Saturday, the government stepped in. They put a cap on domestic airfares, 18,000 plus taxes. That is still high, but it's better than 50,000. The thing is, Indigo will eventually resolve this crisis, but that should not be the end of the story. We should investigate how this happened. Indigo has around 4,500 pilots on their roster. With the new aviation norms, they would have been slightly short by around 124 pilots, according to some reports. That's it. That would have been the shortage. Such a shortage may have affected 5 to 7% of their flights. But a crisis of this scale, how do you explain that? It suggests something deeper at play, something more systemic and widespread. And this is where the aviation watchdog needs to step in. They cannot run this industry on autopilot. They must be proactive. Statements in Parliament are fine, but what are you doing to prevent a repeat? What are you doing to address the root causes of this crisis? That's where the government will be judged. India is the world's 5th biggest aviation market. If you consider domestic numbers, it's the third largest domestic aviation market in the world. The aim is to become number 1. Millions of new passengers take their first flight every year. The government is building airports every month. Travel is booming. This should be the perfect market for any airline. But here's the fact. India is also the biggest graveyard of airlines. I know it sounds dramatic, but look at the numbers. Since the year 2000, at least 14 major Indian airlines have collapsed. 14 airlines. Some disappeared quietly, some left behind a huge pile of debt, unpaid salaries, and grounded aircraft. The question is why? This is a country where demand is exploding, so why are airlines failing here? And what is the solution to the current crisis? To understand that, we'll have to rewind because our story begins in the 2000s. It was a romantic era of Indian aviation. Flying suddenly became affordable. A lot of carriers entered the arena. You had Air Sahara, SpiceJet, Indigo, Go Air, Air Deccan, Paramount, Jet Airways, Kingfisher. Everyone was expanding. Everyone believed that they would win. But nobody asked the key question. Can India actually support all these airlines? The answer, as they figured later, was no. You see, flying a plane is expensive everywhere in the world, but flying a plane in India is even more expensive because there are 3 big killers, 3 major challenges. Number 1, aviation turbine fuel or ATF. ATF makes up about 40% of airline costs, 40. In India, it is taxed very high. And on top of that, some states slap an additional VAT. That's value-added tax on fuel that is already taxed. So the costs pile up. When global oil prices go up, Indian carriers bleed. When the rupee weakens, Indian carriers bleed more. So it's an expensive business to be in. Challenge number 2, dependency on the dollar. Aircraft leasing, maintenance, spare costs, all of it is done in US dollars. But your ticket revenue, that's in Indian rupees. So it cuts in the profit margins. Challenge number 3, airport costs. Delhi and Mumbai airports are among the costliest in the world. Even parking an aircraft is expensive. And amid all of this, the flight prices still have to be low enough to attract customers. This creates the perfect storm. So after the spurt of the early 2000s, the cracks began to show. Soon the cracks became fractures, and then the fractures became funerals. In 2007, Air Sahara was facing intense competition. It suffered operational losses. It collapsed and was finally acquired by Jet Airways. That same year, Air Deccan also failed. It was India's pioneering low-cost airline, but it was under financial pressure, and that led to its merger with Kingfisher Airlines. Then in 2012, Kingfisher faced the same fate. Its slogan was, "Fly the good times." Well, the good times ended that year. The airline collapsed under mountains of debt. But the biggest shock came in 2019. Jet Airways was India's best full-service airline, but competition and debt caused it to shut shop. In 2023, Go First met the same fate. And for the same reasons, mounting liabilities. So clearly there is a pattern. Airlines fail because of intense competition and growing debt. And with every collapse, one player became stronger. That was Indigo. As competitors fell, Indigo absorbed their pilots, their aircraft and their passengers. By the early 2020s, India had entered a new aviation era, a duopoly. Indigo held around 65% of the market. Air India had another 20 to 25%. We do have other players like SpiceJet and Akasa, but they are minnows in the shark tank. Now, a duopoly is not always bad, but a duopoly in aviation is very bad. If one player wobbles, the whole system collapses. And that's what happened this week. The government agrees too. It says India needs at least 5 big airlines.
We have envisioned the demand to be growing at such a rate that we want to have more airlines in the picture. And I have continuously said on the floor of the House, in both the houses and outside also whenever I'm speaking, that India today has the capacity of 5 big airlines. We are talking about 2 airlines, but the capacity, the demand that India is creating today, we need to have 5 big airlines. And that has been the efforts from the ministry to encourage more airlines to come in.
India needs 5 big airlines. The question is, what are we doing to get there? Because India's aviation potential is unimaginable. Per capita flying is still low, but aspiration is sky high. Urbanization is booming. Airports are multiplying. India is adding more passengers every year than the population of Australia. 83 airports have come up in the last decade. But we need a lot more to become the world's biggest aviation market. First of all, we need stable policies. You cannot have overnight rule changes or panic rollbacks. Rules have to benefit all players. They have to benefit both airlines and passengers. It cannot be a one-way street. Second, we need rational fuel taxes. Higher taxes only eat into the profit margins and make the business harder to sustain. 3, we need financial discipline. Airlines must stop expanding like lottery winners. 4, we need strong competitors. Indigo may be the market leader, but Air India's revival is also critical. Akasa needs room to grow. So does SpiceJet. And finally, we need new entrants. The market needs more airlines because India cannot depend on a duopoly to carry 1 billion people to the skies. It must revamp the whole system. Because no matter how bright the lights shine, no plane can take off from a broken runway. It was a dramatic weekend. 2 world powers came dangerously close to conflict. China and Japan. Their fighter jets came face to face. They nearly triggered a war in the sky. For weeks, both sides have been locked in a tense standoff, a standoff over Taiwan, and now it is spiraling. It is entering a far more dangerous zone, one that could ignite a full-blown military conflict. Here's what happened on Saturday. A Chinese aircraft carrier was on the move. It's called the Liaoning. That's the name of the carrier. It was conducting military drills near Japan's Okinawa Islands, and from this aircraft carrier, dozens of fighter jets took off. China deployed the J-15 warplane for the drill. There were at least 100 jet takeoffs, 100 takeoffs in a single day. This is according to Japan's defense ministry. So this was not a drill. This was a show of force. In response, Japan scrambled its jets. They sent up their warplanes to monitor Chinese activity, and from here the situation escalated. Japanese pilots encountered Chinese jets in the air, and this was followed by a face-off. The Chinese warplanes locked their radar on Japanese jets, specifically the fire control radar. Now, this is a weapon system. A fire-controlled radar is what fighter jets use to aim and shoot at missiles. So when this radar is locked on you, it means that you're on target. It's the last step before the pilot fires at you. And this is why Japan is alarmed, because at that point, all that the Chinese pilots had to do was press the trigger. It would have started a military conflict mid-air. Also, this was not a one-off. The same thing happened twice on the same day, which is why Japan is furious.
This radar illumination was a dangerous act that goes beyond what is necessary for the safe operation of aircraft. It is extremely regrettable that such an incident occurred. We lodged a strong protest with the Chinese side and firmly called for and requested measures to prevent any recurrence.
Japan's defense ministry is protesting China's actions. They say their planes were in the international airspace, not in Chinese territory. There was no reason for China to target them. The Japanese Prime Minister has also issued a statement. Her name is Senator Takaichi. She called this incident extremely regrettable, and she has issued a warning to China.
China's radar lock-on was a dangerous act exceeding the scope necessary for the safe flight of aircraft, and it is extremely regrettable that such an incident occurred. We strongly protested to the Chinese side, and we have sternly demanded that it not recur. We will respond calmly and resolutely.
And what is China's response? Of course, they deny everything. Beijing says its jets were on a routine training mission and that it was the Japanese who were harassing them.
China has already stated its solemn position on this issue, and the facts are very clear. China's training exercises in the relevant sea and air areas are in accordance with international law and practice, and the relevant operations are professional, standardized, and beyond reproach. Activating search radar during carrier-based aircraft flight training is a common practice in all countries and a normal operation to ensure flight safety. The key issue in this incident is that Japanese fighter jets intruded into China's training area without authorization, conducting close-in reconnaissance and interference with China's military activities.
The problem with China's claims is that they don't match the facts. Last week, there was another standoff. Coast guards from China and Japan were pitted against each other in the high seas. This happened near the Senkaku Islands. Now, this is a disputed chain of islands, the Senkaku Islands. They're controlled by Japan, but they're claimed by China. Beijing calls them the Diaoyu Islands, and they almost came to blows with Japan near these islands. Then they almost fired on Japanese warplanes. Like I said, this is dangerous territory. One mishap can trigger a war. And for what? What are they fighting over? Japan's Prime Minister made a statement in a parliament and China is throwing a tantrum over it. That's what it is. Last month, Prime Minister Takaichi was asked a question. If China attacks Taiwan, what would Japan do? She suggested that Japan may have to respond with force. Now, all of this is in the realm of hypothesis, but it's too much for Beijing to digest. They consider Taiwan their own territory, so when any foreign power talks about defending Taiwan, China sees it as a provocation. It tries to browbeat them. And in this case too, Beijing has tried everything: economic, diplomatic, military pressure tactics, all of it. First, China issued travel advisories. It told its people to not travel to Japan. It told its airlines to cancel flights to Japan. It banned Japanese seafood. It blocked film screenings. The idea was to hurt Japanese businesses. Then Beijing complained to the United Nations. Xi Jinping called US President Donald Trump. Right after that call, Trump dialed Tokyo, asking them to soften their stand. But Japan has stood firm. Prime Minister Takaichi has refused to backtrack. Her tough position on Taiwan is boosting her popularity at home. So now China is turning to military pressure, with jets targeting Japan and radar locks in the sky. It's a dangerous game. Today, Japan summoned the Chinese ambassador. They've also lodged a strong protest. After Saturday's stunt, the skies have been calm. But there is no sign that Beijing is backing off. The situation is still precarious. We'll keep tracking it for you.
This is News 18. पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ। डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड भी, मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ। सेंचुरी क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
Stay ahead with News 18. News from your city in your language. Real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and breaking news. Anytime, anywhere. Only on the News 18 app. Scan and download the News 18 app now.
Look around you. Look around you. No one else is doing this story at this hour. At prime time, a story that concerns hundreds and thousands of Indians is being smothered. I don't know why, viewers. Is it because there's pressure? Is it because, viewers, questions have to be asked, which some people are reluctant to ask? Questions have to be asked because, viewers, the entire system is to blame, and accountability has to go all the way to the top. India's aviation watchdog, viewers, managed by the Aviation Ministry, can no longer hide behind technicalities, jargon, or selective outrage because, as thousands of Indians remain abandoned, a paper trail has emerged that points not just to Indigo's failure but also to an accomplice. And I'm saying this with full responsibility, viewers. And that accomplice, viewers, ostensibly is the DGCA, the very regulator, the very watchdog meant to protect you. It turns out that a parliamentary committee had warned in August that the system was cracking, that it was falling apart, that fleet expansion far outstripping pilot growth, fatigue risks was spiraling. Even the ATC manpower was stretched to the limit, and the DGCA itself operating at nearly 50% vacancy, even though, viewers, the DGCA allows Indigo and others to sign on more flights to cater to, as you know, viewers, high season tourist traffic. The panel warned of a catastrophic failure, not my words, the panel's own words, and I'm talking about a parliamentary panel. Look around you. Look around you. No one else is doing this story at this hour. At prime time, a story that concerns hundreds and thousands of Indians is being smothered. I don't know why, viewers. Is it because there's pressure? Is it because, viewers, questions have to be asked, which some people are reluctant to ask? Questions have to be asked because, viewers, the entire system is to blame, and accountability has to go all the way to the top. India's aviation watchdog, viewers, managed by the Aviation Ministry, can no longer hide behind technicalities, jargon, or selective outrage because, as thousands of Indians remain abandoned, a paper trail has emerged that points not just to Indigo's failure but also to an accomplice. And I'm saying this with full responsibility, viewers. And that accomplice, viewers, ostensibly is the DGCA, the very regulator, the very watchdog meant to protect you. It turns out that a parliamentary committee had warned in August that the system was cracking, that it was falling apart, that fleet expansion far outstripping pilot growth, fatigue risks was spiraling. Even the ATC manpower was stretched to the limit, and the DGCA itself operating at nearly 50% vacancy, even though, viewers, the DGCA allows Indigo and others to sign on more.
Our next story is about another conflict in Asia. This one is between Thailand and Cambodia. The border clashes have erupted again with fresh airstrikes, fresh casualties and civilians being moved to shelters. Remember, they signed a ceasefire just a few weeks ago. It was suspended some time back and now it is clearly cracking. So tonight we look at what triggered this round of violence and why this border remains a flashpoint. We'll begin with the latest clash. It started before dawn today. Thailand says Cambodian troops opened fire first, that one Thai soldier was killed, 18 others were wounded. Thai officials claimed that multiple positions came under fire and they had no choice but to respond. So they responded with airstrikes. Thai jets hit several Cambodian military positions. They also say that Cambodia is moving heavy weapons towards the border and this could fuel a sharper escalation.
The Cambodian side opened fire in several additional areas at dawn. We have also requested aircraft support from the Air Force in order to launch strikes to suppress attacks from Cambodian troops, which is necessary to defend ourselves, after we found out that Cambodia has used supporting fires to continuously attack Thailand.
So this is Thailand's version of events. Now here's the Cambodian version. Thailand launched the first strikes. They violated the ceasefire that they agreed to in October. There was a series of attacks at dawn on Cambodian military positions and Cambodian border villages. They sustained the damage, but they did not fire back. This is what Cambodia says.
Faced with attacks from Thailand, the Cambodian army still did not retaliate. They respected the ceasefire, the joint ceasefire agreement between Cambodia and Thailand, and other principal agreements between the two countries following the peaceful solution mechanism and through the international laws.
So two warring sides with two very different versions. Irrespective of who fired first, the fallout is this. There are large-scale evacuations on both sides of the border. In Thailand, more than 385,000 civilians have been ordered to evacuate. More than 35,000 are already in shelters. Meanwhile, in Cambodia too, thousands are moving away from the tense frontier. At least 4 Cambodians have been killed. But why is this border so volatile? The answer lies in history and another colonial map. The border between Thailand and Cambodia was first mapped in 1907. At that time, Cambodia was a French colony. Thailand disputed parts of that map, and even today, there are sections of the border that remain unmarked. And this is where the clashes break out, in the unmarked areas. In fact, one area has been especially sensitive, the Priya Vihar temple. It's an 11th century Hindu temple built on a ridge that both countries have claimed for years. In 1962, the International Court of Justice ruled that this temple belonged to Cambodia. But the land around the temple is still disputed. It has seen clashes on multiple occasions, although this year has been different because this conflict has been more frequent. This year it has been more intense and much harder to control. In July, there was a 5-day conflict. At least 48 people were killed, 300,000 were displaced. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim had to step in. US President Donald Trump called both sides. He spoke to leaders on both sides, and in October, they signed a deal in Kuala Lumpur. Trump called it a major breakthrough. But within weeks, the deal began to unravel. In early November, a Thai soldier was maimed by a landmine. Thailand said the mine was newly laid by Cambodia. Cambodia denied it. Thailand suspended parts of the ceasefire deal. In fact, we spoke to Thailand's foreign minister only last week, and he said the onus is on Cambodia.
We were not the one to breach the agreement. We had to suspend the implementation of the agreement because our soldiers were severely injured when they stepped on landmines, newly planted landmines. And it's not the first time, it's the 7th time that our soldiers have stepped on landmines, and we're waiting for the Cambodians to take responsibility for what happened and establish the facts and ensure that something that does not happen.
So the tension had been building for weeks. Today it exploded. Malaysia has urged both sides to show maximum restraint because what happens here also affects the rest of the world. Remember, this region is a major trade corridor for Asia. Thailand and Cambodia are also important partners for the United States, and airstrikes between ASEAN members are extremely rare. So this latest flare-up has put the region on edge. Will it detonate into a full-scale crisis, or will a last-minute intervention pull them back from the brink? We'll be watching this closely. So Trump's peace lasted all of 7 weeks. But don't worry, the US president has moved on. His new project is the US security strategy. Think of it as a guidebook. It tells you what America's biggest challenges are, what its biggest priorities are, and who its partners and rivals are. This document spells out all of it. Trump has revamped this national security strategy. Tonight, we look at the top 5 highlights. Number 1, the US will focus heavily on the Western Hemisphere, probably more than any other region. Let me quote from the document. It says, after years of neglect, the United States will reassert and enforce the Monroe Doctrine to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere. We will deny non-hemispheric competitors the ability to position forces or other threatening capabilities. Let me give you some context. The Monroe Doctrine dates back to the year 1823. It says the US must always dominate the Western Hemisphere. And Trump is doubling down on this idea. He is targeting the regime in Venezuela. He is putting more sanctions on Cuba. He is bailing out Argentina's government. He is meddling in Brazil's domestic politics. All of this suggests an aggressive US policy in the region. That's highlight number 1. Number 2, a new US approach to Europe. Until now, the thinking in Washington was clear. The US and Europe will together take on Russia. But look at what the new document says. Managing European relations with Russia will require significant US diplomatic engagement to mitigate the risk of conflict between Russia and European states. Let me translate that for you. The US wants to broker peace between Russia and Europe, if not peace, at least stability. The document also mentions NATO. Let me quote again. We must end the perception and prevent the reality of NATO as a perpetually expanding alliance. This must be music to Russia's ears. A, Trump wants to stabilize Moscow's ties with Europe, and B, he wants to stop expanding NATO. As expected, Russia welcomed it.
The adjustments that we see correspond in many ways to our vision. So there is reason to hope this could be a modest guarantee that constructive joint work on finding a peaceful settlement for Ukraine at minimum can continue.
Highlight number 3, there's a West Asian divide in Trump's strategy. Here's what the document says. The days in which the Middle East dominated American foreign policy in both long-term planning and day-to-day execution are thankfully over. Now, on paper, this is not surprising. The US began pivoting away from West Asia in the 2010s. Trump continued that pivot in his first term as president. But in his second term as president, we are seeing the very opposite. Trump deployed the US military against Iran. He expanded operations against the Houthis in Yemen. His first foreign trip was to West Asia. He promised NATO-like security to Qatar. He's selling F-35 jets to Saudi Arabia. He's cozying up to Syria's new president. And he's aggressively pushing Arab-Israel normalization. This is the divide I was talking about. Yes, the US security establishment is moving away from West Asia, but the Trump White House is not. If anything, they're doubling down. Then we have highlight number 4, a push for closer ties with India. And I'll quote again. We must continue to improve commercial and other relations with India to encourage New Delhi to contribute to Indo-Pacific security. Again, there's a divide here. Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on India, yet this document is calling for improved commercial ties. But here's the good news. Pakistan barely makes it. It is mentioned only once in the document, and that's in the context of the conflict between India and Pakistan. So Trump's warmth with Islamabad has not translated into strategy, and that is good news for India. The government in New Delhi has welcomed Trump's new document.
Yes, we have seen the report that you mentioned. It underscores the importance that the United States attaches to India as a key partner. As you know, we have a multifaceted relationship with the United States. Both countries enjoy comprehensive global strategic partnership and continue to work to further strengthen these ties.
And now the final highlight, a new approach to China. The last strategy document named China as a competitor. This one drops that tag. Instead, there is a lot of focus on trade. And here's what it says. We will rebalance America's economic relationship with China, prioritizing reciprocity and fairness to restore American economic independence. And what about the military threat? What about Taiwan? The document still calls for deterring a Chinese invasion. How? By ensuring that America has the military edge over China. Now, if you read the whole document, one thing becomes quite clear. There is an internal battle in Washington. On one side is Donald Trump. He has very radical ideas about US security, whether it's resetting ties with Russia or focusing on the Western Hemisphere or rolling back NATO's eastward march. This is what Trump wants. On the other side, you have the US establishment. They have more traditional views, like the pivot to the Indo-Pacific or the withdrawal from West Asia or deterring China from invading Taiwan. And this battle gives us a muddled US national security strategy, where some things are clear, but a lot is not. Our next story takes us to Benin. It's a country in West Africa. It is often described as one of the region's most stable democracies. But that stability was tested yesterday. A group of soldiers launched a coup. They announced that the president had been removed from office. For several hours, the country faced gunfire and confusion. But by evening, the government said the coup had been foiled, and at least 14 soldiers had been arrested. Unfortunately, the story does not end here, because what happened in Benin is part of a much larger pattern in West Africa. It has seen a wave of military takeovers in recent years. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and just last month, Guinea-Bissau. And Benin itself has a history of coups. But no attempt has succeeded since 1972. Here's a report.
It was an ordinary Sunday in the West African nation of Benin. But within minutes, Cotonou shifted from routine calm to confusion and fear. Gunfire was heard near the president's residence. Armed personnel moved towards the state broadcaster, and soon it became clear. A coup was underway in Benin's largest city. At the national television station, a group of soldiers took control. 8 of them appeared live on air. They called themselves the Military Committee for Refoundation, and they announced that President Patrice Talon is removed from office.
Béninoises et Béninois.
Beninese people, dear compatriots, on this day, Sunday, December 7th, 2025, we, the Defense and Security Forces, after careful consideration, and to give our country a new direction, have decided to take our responsibilities following the multiple failures of Mr. Patrice Talon's government.
Patrice Talon is a former businessman who came to power in 2016. Under him, Benin has reportedly seen steady economic growth. But he has also faced accusations of authoritarianism. Critics say he has limited political opposition. His tenure, set to end in April next year, has also coincided with rising jihadist violence in the north. The revolting soldiers framed their takeover around these security concerns. They also criticize how families of fallen soldiers were treated and alleged unfair promotions within the armed forces. The soldiers ordered the country's borders to be closed until further notice. But their mutiny collapsed within hours. 14 soldiers were arrested. Many others, including the alleged organizer, fled. Benin made 2 urgent requests to Nigeria for help. Nigerian fighter jets entered Benin's airspace, targeting locations where the mutineers had regrouped. Nigerian troops also crossed the border on Benin's request. By evening, President Talon appeared on state television to reassure the country the crisis was over.
I would like to reassure you that the situation is completely under control and invite you, therefore, to go about your business calmly from this evening onwards. Security and public order will be maintained throughout the national territory to guarantee freedom of movement for everyone.
Benin has faced repeated coups attempts after independence from France in 1960, but not a single one has succeeded since 1972. Locals describe the shock of hearing gunfire for the first time in decades.
I can already tell you, it was total fear, absolute fear, because it's the first time we've ever experienced something like this in real time.
The incident comes as West Africa faces a wave of coups in recent years. Mali saw 2 coups in 2020 and 2021. Burkina Faso had 2 in 2022. Niger's government was toppled in 2023. Guinea experienced its own military takeover, and Guinea-Bissau saw its president removed last month after a disputed election. Many of these states are grappling with jihadist violence spreading south from the Sahel. That pressure has strained institutions across the region. Benin had long avoided this pattern, but Sunday's attempted coup showed how quickly that could change. For now, Benin says order has been restored. But has the threat truly passed?
This is New.
Look around you. Look around you. No one else is doing this story at this hour. At prime time, a story that concerns hundreds and thousands of Indians is being smothered. I don't know why, viewers. Is it because there's pressure? Is it because, viewers, questions have to be asked, which some people are reluctant to ask? Questions have to be asked because, viewers, the entire system is to blame. And accountability has to go all the way to the top. India's aviation watchdog, viewers, managed by the Aviation Ministry, can no longer hide behind technicalities, jargon or selective outrage because as thousands of Indians remain abandoned, a paper trail has emerged that points not just to Indigo's failure but also to an accomplice. And I'm saying this with full responsibility, viewers. And that accomplice, viewers, ostensibly is the DGCA, the very regulator, the very watchdog meant to protect you. It turns out that a parliamentary committee had warned in August that the system was cracking, that it was falling apart, that fleet expansion far outstripping pilot growth, fatigue risks were spiraling. Even the ATC manpower was stretched to the limit, and the DGCA itself operating at nearly 50% vacancy, even though, viewers, the DGCA allows Indigo and others to sign on more flights to cater to, as you know, viewers, high season tourist traffic. The panel warned of a catastrophic failure, not my words, the panel's own words, and I'm talking about a parliamentary panel. But the DGCA, controlled by the Civil Aviation Ministry, did squat, did nothing, viewers, absolutely nothing. Nothing. Here is a snapshot, viewers. I have that particular report in my hands. I always come with the hard facts. I always come, viewers, with documents. Viewers, these are the facts that the DGCA cannot bury anymore. Look around you. Look around you. No one else is doing this story at this hour. At prime time, a story that concerns hundreds and thousands of Indians is being smothered. I don't know why, viewers. Is it because there's pressure? Is it because, viewers, questions have to be asked, which some people are reluctant to ask? Questions have to be asked because, viewers, the entire system is to blame. And accountability has to go all the way to the top. India's aviation watchdog, viewers, managed by the Aviation Ministry, can no longer hide behind technicalities, jargon or selective outrage because as thousands of Indians remain abandoned, a paper trail has emerged that points not just to Indigo's failure but also to an accomplice. And I'm saying this with full responsibility, viewers. And that accomplice, viewers, ostensibly is the DGCA, the very regulator, the very watchdog meant to protect you. It turns out that a parliamentary committee had warned in August that the system was cracking, that it was falling apart, that fleet expansion far outstripping pilot growth, fatigue risks were spiraling. Even the ATC manpower was stretched to the limit, and the DGCA itself operating at nearly 50% vacancy, even though, viewers, the DGCA allows Indigo and others to sign on more flights to cater to, as you know, viewers, high season tourist traffic. The panel warned of a catastrophic failure, not my words, the panel's own words, and I'm talking about a parliamentary panel. But the DGCA, controlled by the Civil Aviation Ministry, did squat, did nothing, viewers, absolutely nothing. Nothing. Here is a snapshot, viewers. I have that particular report in my hands. I always come with the hard facts. I always come, viewers, with documents. Viewers, these are the facts that the DGCA cannot bury anymore. There was a parliamentary panel's warning in August 2025, and it said that fleet growth exceeds pilot growth. The panel warned that rapid aircraft induction without matching crew strength was unsafe. It's all written here. Fatigue, a major safety hazard. Alerted DGCA that pilot and ATC fatigue could trigger serious incidents. Did the DGCA, viewers, look at the biggest airline and ask it whether it was actually taking on board the pilots' inadequate numbers that were required to submit under the FDTL requirements, viewers? No. It just sent notices. Just basically, viewers, to do the bare necessities so that no one could turn around and say, oh, you messed up. You see, bureaucrats are experts, viewers, at covering their tracks. The DGCA, this panel report, viewers, that I have right here, said that it was severely understaffed, nearly 50.
Now let's talk about the fire tragedy in Goa. Goa is a state on the southwestern coast of India. It is a famous tourist destination. Over the weekend, it saw a tragedy. There was a fire in a nightclub. Hundreds of people were there to witness a fire show. But the flames went out of control. 25 people died. 4 of them were from the same family. And what caused the fire? Investigators say it was criminal negligence. There was only one exit, no fire alarms, no sprinklers, and apparently no fire clearance either. This club lacked the adequate permissions, but it was being run anyway. 25 people are gone. And now reports say the owners of the nightclub have fled to Thailand. Here's a report.
25 lives lost, several others injured, all of it in just a matter of minutes. This is one of the deadliest fire tragedies in Goa in recent memory. And the worst part, it was completely preventable. It happened at a nightclub in Arpora in North Goa. The place was called Birch by Romeo Lane. A party was underway, music, drinks, and a crowd of hundreds. And then a fire show began. That's when everything changed. The flames quickly spread across the venue. Smoke filled the rooms. There was only one way in and one way out. People panicked. They rushed to the door, but they couldn't get out. There was a stampede. People got trapped, and 25 of them never made it out alive. So what exactly went wrong? The list is long and horrifying. According to reports, the club lacked fire safety equipment. Essential safety arrangements were missing. There were no emergency exits, just one single door, not enough to evacuate in time. This is not just poor planning. This is a violation of the most basic safety norms. Even the exits that did exist were too narrow. There were no exit signs, no emergency lighting, no proper fire-rated doors, no evacuation plan. And all of this in a crowded club during a fire show. Police have filed a First Information Report, or FIR. They've named the club's chairman Saurabh Luthra and his brother, along with the club manager, the event organizers, and others. They're all facing serious charges. The club's chairman, Saurabh Luthra, has spoken out. He says the management is shaken by the loss of lives and expressed solidarity with the families of the deceased. Luthra has assured full cooperation to the investigators. So far, 5 of the victims have been identified as tourists. One family lost 4 members in the fire. The entire building has been sealed. Investigations are on. But the big question is, how did this club even function without clearances? Why didn't authorities stop it sooner? Where was the fire department and where was the vigilance? And this isn't just about one nightclub in Goa. This could happen anywhere. Many venues across India still lack fire safety compliance. Basic rules like multiple exits, alarms, sprinklers are ignored. The Goa fire must be a wake-up call. This wasn't an act of nature. It wasn't bad luck. It was the cost of turning a blind eye. And now families are grieving because one night out turned into a nightmare.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. We will dive into the Vande Mataram debate, viewers. But first up, big news coming in from Tamil Nadu, where we are given to understand that the DMK currently, the ruling government of Tamil Nadu, the ruling party, is busy collecting signatures to propose an impeachment motion against the Madras High Court judge, Justice G.R. Swaminathan, who passed an adverse stricture against the HRNC department while he allowed the devotees and the petitioners to go ahead and light the Deepam, Kartikai Deepam, at the Deepathoon atop the Tirupuran Kundram temple in Madurai. Now, we are given to understand the war cry for the motherland that energized and inspired a freedom movement that ultimately freed Bharat of colonizers was Vande Mataram, or Vande Mataram, our national song, composed by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay in 1875 to highlight its cultural, historical and national significance. Celebrating 150 years of Vande Mataram, Prime Minister Narendra Modi led the debate in the Lok Sabha earlier in the day, accusing the Congress of dropping the 4 stanzas to appease a particular community, mainly the Muslims, because of Jinnah and the seeds of differences that had been sown by the Ali brothers already within the Muslim League. Now, the Prime Minister went on to say that it was Jinnah